everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's super exciting to see such a great turnout for today's event. My name is Mikki. I'm the Community Engagement Librarian at Cairns Libraries. I would like to acknowledge the Himalayan Dreams peoples, who are the traditional custodians of the lands and waters on which we meet, their elders past and present, and all other First Nations people here with us today. I also want to just say that February is Low Vision Awareness Month, which is a perfect time to talk about audiobooks and the role that audiobooks play for so many people in our community. So Vision Australia acknowledges Low Vision Awareness Month. It's a very, very common condition affecting many Australians, actually over 450,000 people in our community, and any of us can become vision impaired at any time. So later in this event we'll talk a little bit more about the availability of audiobooks in the community, where you can get them and what their role is. But first I would like to thank Councillor Pine for being with us and welcome you to introduce the event.
Well, it's an honour to be here today, especially with Kirsty and Richard. Richard is a voice I would have heard first, I think, on my local ABC many years ago. So it's great that you've teamed up together on this and very exciting. Kirsty's an award-winning journalist and a successful businesswoman who moved to Cairns in 2010. She is known to local audiences through her work as an ABC journalist, where I've got to say, as a politician, it's been great to have someone as ethical, honest and straight as Kirsty. It's not always the case with some of the Murdoch publications. Kirsty now works as a media and video trainer in her company eMotion Video and Media Training, and has just been named a finalist, selected from over 750 nominations for the Women Changing the World Women in Literature Award, which recognises. So I just want to thank you both for being here today. Having disability can be isolating, so thank you very much for having this audio version. And yeah, I'm excited to be here today. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pine. And I know that Rob has been a huge fan of Som and his work with Friends of Himalayan Children. Unfortunately, Som can't be here with us today, but I have to thank Councillor Pine for giving me a letter of support, which helped me obtain a grant. I got a Regional Arts Fund grant through Regional Arts Australia, administered in Queensland by Flying Arts. So I welcome the member for Cairns, Michael Healy, here today, and thank him for being here and for the cash. Thank you. And of course, the original book wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had the initial injection of funds through the Regional Arts Development Fund through the Cairns Regional Council and State Government of Queensland. So this book has very much been a team effort, and I really appreciate the support of the federal, state and local governments in making it happen.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So, and welcome Richard, thank you for being here with us today.
Pleasure.
Kirsty, we met you last August as the proud author of a recently published book, and we now meet you as you launch that book in audio format. So congratulations on the ongoing amazing journey of this piece of work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. And if you have been here at the previous talk, I know Josie and a few others in the audience were here. It is going to be quite different, so yeah.
We got a new spin. Okay, so before we talk about the audiobook format, let's talk a little bit about the subject of your work, because it is a really, really important story. So Himalayan Dreams is the biography of a local man named Som Tamang, who we had the pleasure of meeting last year when he joined you in August. And if you don't know Som's story, you really need to read the book. Read or listen to the book to get a true appreciation of it. It's an incredible story. Kirsty, why do you think it is important for Som's story to be told?
I think it's a universal story, and we're lucky to have Som in far north Queensland and have this sort of local hero amongst us. And he's a great example of you never know what somebody's been through. He gets around town and runs the shop Himalayan Dreams at the pier, and runs Friends of Himalayan Children as a not-for-profit, and a trekking company, Take On Nepal. But to meet him, he's the most humble person, and you wouldn't know that he'd come from a position of extreme poverty, where education wasn't guaranteed, where it certainly wasn't on the cards for girls in the village at the time he went to school. So I think what he has achieved in his own life and for others, a whole village in Batasi, Nepal, it just kind of shows what is possible. And I thought it's worth celebrating this person as a local member of our community, part of the Nepalese diaspora in Australia, but also, speaks to people wherever you are in the world about what is possible if you just put your mind to something. He never accepts no for an answer. He sees a vision. He doesn't live small, so he really just had the faith in himself to get the job done, and we can see what's happened since Friends of Himalayan Children was registered in 2008. They supported hundreds of children to go to school in Batasi that may not have had that choice otherwise through financial reasons, and effectively has stopped human trafficking in his village. No girls trafficked in the last 10 years from Batasi to India, to an unimaginable horror, no doubt. And also child marriage has stopped in the village. So, yeah, I just thought that is a story that is universal and worth telling. It's a great Far North Queensland story, but it's a great global story.
Yeah, and I love that you've mentioned it's a great Far North Queensland story, because I guess not only is it the story of one man's determination and resilience and incredible vision and changes he made in Nepal, but it's also a story about our own community. So what does Som's story teach us about the migrant experience in our own community?
Well, I think he couldn't have done what he did without the support of the Cairns community. So what he has done is he's embraced the opportunity that you get when you're welcomed to this country. He was able to go to TAFE and learn English and finish his schooling here, which is something he always wanted to do but just didn't have the means, and made connections. And it was through enrolling in James Cook University that he met the first people that got on board with his vision of making this beyond him being able to just help his immediate family members and send cash back for them to go to school. They jumped on board with his vision. So I think it shows that when people come here from another place, that they want to give. They want to work hard. I mean, Som had a job within days of being here. He'd bought a car within a couple of weeks of being here. He wanted to take that opportunity and make the most of it. So I think it shows us what's possible, and the talent and the drive and the beautiful things that people bring when they come from other places. So I personally love living in a place where we do have a blend of backgrounds, and I've done a lot of work in my company with Centre Care FNQ in the last year, and that's been a real pleasure, meeting people from all over the place, from African countries, from Ukraine, and just getting to know about the migrant experience here.
And you've already touched on it, but Som's story is such a powerful message about gender equality and the fight for empowerment of women and girls. So what would you add to that?
It's a strange thing to have a biography about a man be all about women's empowerment, right? It's not the most obvious thing you think of when you pick up the cover and you think Himalayan Dreams, but Som's motivation in the work that he's done is all about gender equality. It's about him seeing as a child that things were different for girls and wanting to change that, and believing that it wasn't somebody else's job. He thought, well, I can do something about it myself. So his whole motivation has been to create equality in access to education. So he started with his sister, Fulmaya, arguing with his parents that she should go to school, and almost to the point of disowning his family and cutting them off. That was the threat that he made in order to get them to send her to school, and she started when she was 11 years old. She now lives in Australia and is a qualified, has pharmacy and social work qualifications, and is just in the process of finishing a qualification here in support work. So you can instantly see the impact that education has. And yes, so he's really been motivated to help girls in his village have equal opportunity. I remember when he was here talking in August that he talked about how important it is to educate the boys in his village about respect and about the fact that everyone's equal. And he's brought that into his company, Take On Nepal, which pioneered having women guides as trekking guides. And here are some of them in 2018 when I went to Everest Base Camp. And many of these girls I had taught in the village 2 years earlier. And it was such a thrill to come back and see these young women be empowered and have jobs and economic security and be able to support their families in a different way, not just farming and raising children. So yeah, that is what his mission has been, and he's been very, very successful at it. And even a couple of the women in this photo, and Sanjana, they've both got married during COVID, but that would have been the end of any kind of employment a generation ago. But they've both come back to trekking, and Bimaya's got a 3-year-old boy. So he's created a different narrative about what it is to be a woman in rural Nepal.
So you've been very, very successful in getting his story into print. What made you think I'd like to put this as an audiobook format?
Just the fact that I wanted this story to have as wide a reach as possible. So books are great, they can be read, and this book has been available all over the world for a year now, and it's been sold in at least 10 countries. But I know that there's a whole audience out there that hasn't been able to access the book, either through having low vision or English as a second language, or I know many of my friends even now do not buy books, they do not read books in the physical form. Everyone is short on time now, so increasingly we're looking for audio to make sure we can multitask while we're doing things. So many people are listening to books in their cars now, or while they're walking or doing the housework. So I really just wanted to get this book out to those audiences that currently couldn't. And I read a statistic that by 2029 there's actually going to be 10.9 million Australians who are consuming audiobooks. So it's a growing market, and I wanted this book to be available there. I have got a little sample if anyone would like to hear.
Let's listen.
That's very much on the theme of Som's motivation for doing the work that he does.
Something we prepared earlier.
Something Richard prepared earlier.
Bringing a daughter of his own into the world, Som reflected on how different her life would be to that of the girls growing up in Batassi. Tara would have equal rights, opportunities, and be able to make choices for herself in Australia. Som was taking small but significant steps towards his vision for the girls of Nepal through the expansion of the school and the building of a hostel in Batassi. He had made it his mission to stop child trafficking. Som had been aware trafficking was prevalent in Batassi from an early age. Sometimes up to 20 girls disappeared in a year. Before Friends of Himalayan Children, every household had one child sent overseas or to India to get some money back to look after their family, Som said. Only the brothers were sent to school, and the families didn't think they were doing the wrong thing. They thought it was valid for young 12-year-old girls and boys to go and work, but they didn't know what work they were having to do. Once they got to the other end, only the child who is trafficked knows what they have been sold for. It was a long game for the traffickers. Most girls were groomed over several years, investing their trust in a family member or friend. Som knew who the traffickers were. He'd seen them walking around the village with a swagger of confidence and a disarming smile, establishing which families had girls who were young enough to be influenced and old enough to be marketable. They would talk to the girls' parents and buy them a bottle of beer and a packet of cigarettes, Som explained. They'd become a friend and guest and build up a relationship and lure the girls into different things, offer them money and mobile phones, and tell them there was a great opportunity to be looked after and adopted into rich people's homes and go to school. They would play mind games. It was all a trick to get them to Kathmandu and then to brothels in India. The girls' parents would be told their daughter was going to work for wealthy, loving families and would send back large amounts of money and gold to support them. Having built trust with their new connection, The trafficker didn't need to give the girls' parents any money up front. It was only when the desperate families questioned why they didn't see any returns after many months that they were given small amounts of money to keep them from talking to others in the community or making a report to the police. The girl and her family became dependent on the traffickers, who were the only link between them.
It's powerful to listen to it, and not rather than read it. It's yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about that a bit later too. How did you start the process? Did you know where to go, who to talk to? What did you do first?
Not initially. Bit of investigation to see what was involved. I knew that I had to record it, and I did consider how I should make this an audiobook, whether I should get somebody else to read it, because that's something that people can do. You can hire people who do this for a living. But I really wanted to read the story myself, and having worked with Richard as a broadcaster at the ABC here in far north Queensland, we both have radio backgrounds, and I thought, well, there's no reason why I can't read my own audiobook, and I felt like I could connect with the story and really express what I had intended when I wrote it. I have to say I probably would have written it slightly differently if I knew that it was going to be an audiobook. Yes. Some of the sentences were a little bit long, and Juliet, my publisher, is here today, and she helped me make some of them smaller, but they could definitely have done with another edit for audio purposes, but I have read the book as it was.
I wondered if you needed to alter, or can you, like, is there a protocol if you, when you're turning a work into an audiobook, can you change it to suit the audiobook format, or?
I think you can.
Well,
it's up to you.
I'm sure I read things that said you had, like, boxes that you had to tick to say that it was an exact replica. Okay. Yeah. So I didn't stray from the book. And yeah, it's quite terrifying. You think I could put all of these hours in, and if I haven't done it right, then they could just say no. And we really didn't have time to waste. It was how I actually got a quick response grant for doing this book, because I run a business and Richard was working, and I thought the only time we've got to do this is really in that Christmas, New Year period. So we basically got together and did it over 2 weekends. Okay. Yeah, so Richard had a studio set up at his home in Innisfail. But back to your question about what did I do to find out about it, I looked at a couple of webinars about the whole process, and I found Juliet had told me about Find Away Voices. So if you've never heard of this, it's owned by Spotify, which many people in the room would be familiar with, but it is a publisher or distribution platform. So you upload, you record all of the audiobook files as separate chapters, and then they have technical specifications for the audio files, and then you upload it as you do chapters. And then you have to have, they've got specifications for the book cover design. So I had the book cover design as a square for the platforms, and just a few kind of back-end things like that. So there's quite a bit involved.
A lot of metadata.
A lot of metadata involved. Did you want to talk about the process of actually recording it?
Well,
apart from it being painful?
Well, it wasn't that painful. You did talk about you would have written it differently if you were writing it as a thing to be read, and that is a real thing. Storytelling in print is very different from storytelling in sound, and there are words that trip you up. What was the phrase that you kept?
Cultural traditions.
And it's amazing how many times you used it.
It's in every chapter, and I kept tripping over it. And Richard's advice, and this is why I wanted to work with a professional to do the book, because you'll see there, there's various ways you can do it. You can hire a narrator to record your audiobook. You can do it yourself.
Get an actor. You know.
Yeah. There's also a company called Hembry Books, and I'm very grateful to Jessica Muddett. She had me on her podcast last year, and she is an independent publishing company like the Erudite Pen, and she's supporting authors to get their work out there, not just as physical books but as audiobooks. And she's actually got a service where she'll send you the microphone and you send the files back. They send it to an audio editor in the specs that are needed for Find Away Voices, and then they do all that uploading and back-end stuff, so you don't have to worry about it. So if you're worried about the technology side of things, that's a good option to have. But I really wanted to have somebody who was going to say, no, do it again, and be completely meticulous in real time with me. So and also keep the money in Far North Queensland as well. So I was really happy to work with Richard on this, knowing that he would do the best job I could possibly hope for.
And when we heard that couple of minute sample, what you don't hear is my next door neighbour's motorbike being started up. You don't hear my dog's tail hitting the floor as he has another dream about treats. You don't hear the helicopter going over Innisfail Hospital. You don't hear... Did you notice Kirsty didn't breathe during that whole
For a whole 5 hours.
People are paying you for the book. They want to hear your story. They don't want to hear you breathe. When all you've got is the sound, anything that doesn't add to the image, the picture you're trying to convey, is a distraction. So we recorded, I don't know, 10, 12...
I've got a non-technical term for it, but I won't share it here.
The job of doing this is editing out all those distractions.
So for
breath sounds, mouth noises, happy dogs, whatever it was. Yeah.
the sound of sweat dripping.
Yeah, because it was hot.
It was, yes, 97% humidity those weekends, and
of course air conditioning and ceiling fans make noise.
yeah. And so the windows were closed. We were just in a bit of a sweat bubble for that period of time.
You've got the photo. There's one with me in my terribly unglamorous shorts.
Were you just in a normal room, not a studio?
In my place at Innisfail, it's the spare bedroom.
Don't want to be hearing pages turning as well. So there's a lot involved in trying to be as quiet as possible. And yes, we did have to ask Buster to leave the room because he was panting too loudly. But then in the second round of recording at my home, and that's Sadie. They weren't in there for the recording, but we thought they should be there to celebrate the finish of the recording. So yes, it was challenging.
Yeah.
Challenging conditions, and for me, I think it was about 10 hours of recording, 10 to 15 hours of recording.
It was 3 days across 2 weekends.
Yes,
Okay.
but for Richard, much longer job because he's got to listen and edit out all of those breaths and other noises that he just talked about. So it's a big job.
And when you record audio, most people have played audio on a computer, but they've never actually made audio on a computerised system. The files are enormous. 2-3 minutes of audio is 200-300 megabytes. If you want high quality audio, it gets bigger again. Every edit is another piece of information. So there came a point where we had all the audio files joined end on end to have the whole book mixed down to just one file.
Wow.
And you press the little master button and walk away and come back 94 minutes later and it was almost finished. It's, big processing power in your computer. You could, for $1,200-1,300, buy all the gear you need to do one of these yourself. Don't do it. It's the kind of work that takes a combination of experience and skill set,
Patience,
stubbornness, and all those things. You've got to be a little bit obsessive to be a good audio editor.
and that's why I chose you.
Thank you.
How much?
So will you do it again, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Was this your first audiobook that you've? been a part of?
Yeah, the first time I've done a thing that you could call an audiobook, it's not that different to all the other kinds of audio production I've done before.
Yeah.
Just perhaps on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard's been making podcasts for many, many years.
Yeah.
But
And radio shows before that where, you know, we did stuff of this level of complexity. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So did Kirsty need coaching or training or preparing? Like, did you need to prepare your voice, or did you need to, how did you get yourself ready? Or did you just open up and read as if you would any other day?
I thought about what I should do to prepare myself, and I thought, should I be reading the book again to refamiliarise myself? In the end, I didn't, because I wanted that emotion to come back in a way that it wasn't so familiar. I don't know if that makes any sense, but as a radio news journalist, I was used to reading ahead, so I knew I could do the presentation side of things. And I kind of wanted the story to be fresh again for me, but you can hopefully hear as I'm reading, and depending on which parts of the book you go to, the emotion and the reconnection that is coming with me, just reconnecting with that book. And I think that may not have happened if I'd tried to practice or read it many times beforehand. So I really just came to it fresh. But Richard, I just say to him, like, I want this to be as good as it can be. Please, you won't offend me if you say you need to do that again. It's crap. So we had times where
Was there much of that? Was there much retaking? Or
The equation is always how much did you actually record, and then when you take all the mistakes out, how much is left. And I think the raw audio files probably added up to about 14 or 15 hours, and the edited files is just a bit more than half of that. But not because you weren't reading. I mean, nobody reads. You know, the best storytellers in the world can't read a book without fluffing a line occasionally. So,
especially if you're saying cultural traditions.
And some of those, the names, like the minister in the Nepali government who was in charge of XYZ.
That's right.
Whose name was like this long.
And I thought, I never really thought about the fact that I'd have to read those names, but I did have to acquaint myself with how to pronounce some of the names in the book. So that was a bit of a challenge as well.
And there's a trick when you're doing, say you had to read that on the radio as news. You would have broken that tricky name down into 5 short syllables, and the one that takes the emphasis was in capitals, and you just make it easy yourself. You didn't have that. So,
I didn't. When I was doing radio news, I used to underline words that I needed to emphasise, or if it was a tone thing, I would put a little, before emojis were a thing, I'd put them on my radio scripts that this is a kind of light and happy story and this is a bit more serious, and I'd adjust the tone accordingly. So there's a bit of that going on, but without the invisible pen rather than the actual pen this time. Okay. So Richard gave me some great advice during the process. He's like, just give yourself a run up to it.
Yeah, you see a difficult word up ahead, run up the hill, go faster.
If there's coughs, sneezes, itches, you just keep going, or do you?
Oh no.
No.
Bodily functions.
No, they get put on hold.
So you don't edit. You don't edit them out later, or do you?
I would, if I heard it, noticed it at the time, I would always say, let's do that again.
Okay. Yeah.
I think most of the interruptions and the stopping was really the weather. It was quite stormy during that time, and we kept having to stop for thunderstorms and then dripping rain and cars revving and
tree branches landing on the carport roof.
Yeah, all of those lovely things. So yes, you can hire a studio and not have those issues, but I also wanted to do it in a way that proved it was accessible for people to do.
Yeah, that's what I guess one of my questions was, how accessible do you think this process is for other authors? Like, you had contacts and experience as an audio journalist. How accessible a process is this for authors who maybe mightn't have those contacts?
There are studios that have these kind of high quality facilities in town. I don't know if Matt has a podcast, a regular podcast, Northern Vibe. I don't know if you're what your setup is, and you're from home as well.
To suggest it will be amateur is somewhat understatement.
Yeah, if you've got a high quality microphone, you can. I mean, Henbury Books can guide you through that process if you want to do it at home.
Videos,
There's
how to use a microphone properly.
Yeah, but there are studios in town that you can go into and hire for a period of time, work with somebody to record.
Okay.
Just
But you will, at the other end of it, at the production end, be coming up against things that you don't encounter anywhere else in the known universe, and the distribution platform will be sending you emails saying the audio needs to be LUFS -18 to -23 with VU -6 and pixels, and you'd be going, I don't know what that is. So
I guess that's the next step. So once you've done the recording and that's all done, what's the next step?
the distribution.
yeah, so you have to edit it, and there are various programs available, but it is a labour intensive thing, and as Richard said, there might be some technical hurdles to overcome. So I would probably engage somebody to edit it for you, and then it's a matter of getting it out there. So Findaway Voices distributes to 38 different platforms, so you just upload it once, and it doesn't cost you anything but time, which is, there's quite a bit of time involved, and I chose to do that myself, and you can select which ones you want to distribute to. I kept, I didn't select Google Play Books because I knew once I put it on the platform that it was out of my hands, and I wanted to make sure that the book was available at least somewhere by today. So I put it up directly on Google Play Books, which was a fairly easy process. And it's now been available there to download. It's trickling through on the other platforms. Findaway Voices is owned by Spotify, so it went up there fairly quickly, but I'm still waiting for Audible 37 days later. So it's not a fast process, and of course that's where everyone wants to listen to their audiobooks.
And their processes are entirely automated.
So we're still waiting for it to pop up there, but it is available from the Cairns Library.
Sure is, yes, and I'll show you where to find it. I will show you where to find it. So do these platforms automatically accept your book, or is it similar to a publishing company where they might say, no, that's not for us, we don't want that one?
As long as it meets the audio technical requirements, you can publish on those platforms.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. All right, and I guess just some of the challenges in distributing it, like and getting it out there and understanding how it goes and where it goes. Can you speak to that a little bit, or anything else you'd add to that?
Well, it's you can have the greatest book, but if nobody knows about it, then that's a missed opportunity. And I think even though it's felt a bit cringy to be self-promoting as much as I have over the last year. I didn't want to go to all this effort and elevate this incredible story without people knowing it existed. So marketing is a big part of getting a book out there. So you'll see that I'm talking about Himalayan Dreams on all the social platforms all of the time. I'm doing a lot of talks. I love being able to connect with audiences around the story. So I've done over 30 talks, many library talks, but also not all over the world yet. That's hopefully in the future, but I got to launch the book in the Australian Embassy in Nepal. I did a book launch in Singapore where the publicist that I hired for a period of time lives. Just happened to be passing through there on the way back from Nepal, and I said, how about it? And sat down with Arya Carell, who has a Global Perspectives program on YouTube while I was in Kathmandu, and did a recording. So yeah, it's actually getting out there and letting people know that the book exists, doing podcast interviews,
So
doing
that doesn't change.
doing social media. Yeah,
we know
it's the
that
same
authors
process.
have to promote any published work, and putting it in audio format doesn't. That's still the same. You still have to really be a champion of your work. Yeah.
That's it. But of course, it means it's in front of many more audiences potentially.
Absolutely, yeah. And so you've just been named finalist for the Women Changing the World Global Awards. You can see it there. And your category is Women Changing the World Through Literature and Writing. So what's that about?
This is an awards. I think it's maybe in its second or third year, and it's actually an award that started with two Far North Queensland women. You might have heard of Peace Mitchell and Katie Garner from Innisfail, and they had teamed up with the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, and Dr. Terai Trent, who does amazing work in Africa, also lifting up women. And they've been running these global awards at least for a couple of years now, where they are encouraging women to not hide their light under a bushel and talk about what they're doing to elevate women. And I'm a finalist in the literature category. So I'm sure people are going to ask if I'm off to London, and unless someone's paying, I'm going to be down in Townsville delivering training at that time. So, but it's, I know, it's no choice really.
You've got a clip there of you speaking to some of the girls at the Batassi school.
When I spoke to the audience here last time, I hadn't been back to Nepal since writing the book. So I went in 2018 to do interviews, and finally in October last year I got to go back, and it was very, very special to be back there and to reconnect with the young girls who we sponsor. So we've been sponsoring Janisha here since she was 6 years old. She's now 14, and Rubina in the black on the left-hand side, she just recently turned 18. So I can't tell you how special it was to go and spend time with them. We were in the village for a couple of weeks, and just catching up with people that I'd taught the first time I went over in 2016 and then reconnected with in 2018. So this is just me talking to the kids in the Friends of Himalayan Children hostel that Som set up, and you'll get a bit of a sense of the village as well.
I'm so excited to finally come back to the village after writing the book, and to show my husband why I fell in love with Batassi village and with all of you. And you work so hard, you continue to inspire me, and I want you to just keep going with your goals. Don't ever think that any dream is too big, because you can achieve anything. When I came to Nepal, Batassi first time, I was not in a good place. And being here with all of you really helped me. So I went home feeling like I had a new life and a new purpose, and since then I've started my own business and I've written a book. So it doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what you have, if you have determination and good heart and support like Som, then you will achieve your goals.
That's the Nepali national anthem, which I got to sing every day at the school when I was there, and it's always been very special. So by special request, they performed the song for us while we're there, and it was wonderful to share this experience with Sean for the first time. He hadn't been on my previous two visits, so very, very nice to finally get back there and reconnect with everybody.
Do
Do we have any questions for Kirsty or Richard about the journey they've been on in creating this audiobook? And
I was just curious whether Som had his voice in the audiobook, because I was curious about that relationship there.
Yeah, again, I thought about it, and I would like to have had it, but logistically, it's just really challenging to get time with Som. He's got a lot going on in his life, and the audiobook would not be out now. So
pinning him down for 15 to 20 hours.
yeah, it was just logistically not possible. So, but it's been amazing having him here in the talks, because there's nothing quite like speaking to the person whose story it is. So yeah.
Will there be a sequel to what's happened since, I guess in the future? Will there be more to his story and the story of Batassi?
There definitely will be, but I'm not sure that I'll be writing it. I would love to see one of his young leaders do that. I'd love it to hear from one of the next generation. And he talked about this on ABC Radio yesterday, how he would love to hand over the Friends of Himalayan Children work that he's been on this journey for 20 years, and it takes a lot of energy, and wouldn't it be great if his young leaders then took that leadership and maybe wrote the next chapters, because he's only 42 or 41 now, so he's got a lot of life still to live.
Michael. Kirsty, I was just going to say, firstly, thank you. I think it's a really good meeting to be able to get an understanding. This is the way the world is moving, particularly first world economies, and how we disseminate information. So I think recognising firstly the importance of the story and the positive impact it's having on lives, and then getting that out into the broader community, I think is so important. I think of the work that Seneca did, it is absolutely fantastic, and I know that there is 1,000 Soms out there amongst us. So I just think similar to the question, where to from here, I think it is a good opportunity for others. It might not be you, but I think when you look at the way that I've got a library at home, I love my reading, and that's what I look forward to at night, but I am finding a lot more in the audio, so I think we're going to get better with it. But there's so much material out there where we can use this, and obviously and Richard, encouraging people to be able to explore that and expand it, because I think it's good for the community and it's such an important message. That's
it. There's many, many stories to be told, and I can't tell them all. And so that you're right. Yeah. I always tell people when I'm doing my media training, every single person has a story. You might be sitting here thinking, I haven't done anything with my life, or I'm not special, but you talk to the person next to you and they will tell you what's special about you. And so I think we've all got great stories to tell, and certainly a lot of our migrant stories here are phenomenal. So I encourage people, if they've got the desire and the means to write their own story, or get someone to help them write their story. Personally, I'm not writing any more books anytime soon.
Oh, go on.
So you've enjoyed the process?
I have, but it is a very intensive process. It's been a 7-year journey so far, and it's a lot of investment of time and energy and passion and love, and all of those things have been great. But that's how much it takes. So it is a big undertaking.
Would you say as a financial investment for an author, is it similar to creating an audiobook than a print book?
It's a lot more affordable.
Is it? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, in terms of the because you don't have the physical. You don't have the print costs largely, or the layout costs. You have the technical audio type production costs. But it's something that can happen
that's interesting.
reasonably quickly. Although if you were just producing an audiobook, I would still recommend getting it professionally edited, which is a cost. So, but I think comparatively it's less expensive to publish an audiobook.
So Richard, are you going into business doing this?
Open to offers. Yeah, look, I don't know that it's business minds far more capable than mine would probably devise a way to.
What he's saying is there's not a lot of money in it, but given the time that takes to actually do the work.
Yeah, but it is, that being said, it's very enjoyable and emotionally.
So you probably have to have a proper studio, wouldn't you?
Up to a point. You need, like we did the first 2 days of this at my place and then we did the third day at your place. Mine is an old timber Queenslander in Innisfail. If a possum farts 100 metres down the road, you hear it, whereas your place is solid concrete, much less extraneous noise. So you could do it in a home. This room, you can hear the voices bouncing back off the walls. You wouldn't do it in this room, but you'd find somewhere lower ceiling. You know, figure it out. It's not that hard.
Matt?
I think I heard you say it was 15 hours over 3 days to record. I did miss, how long did the editing take?
I don't know that I ever actually put a precise figure on it.
Let's call it a solid week.
Yeah, there's a theory that says something along the lines of 1 minute of highly produced audio is about an hour's work. But we're talking there about...
And it's 5 hours and 42 minutes.
We talk, that formula is based around, say, highly produced Radio National kind of lots of voices and effects and music. This is just a voice, it's not that complicated. And
if this is a question on anyone's mind, it had to be that no extraneous anything else. So it had very specific specifications about having to have a couple of seconds of nothing before each chapter and no other sounds. So no kind of twinkly bits or page turns or no special effects.
No music,
that was a specification it could not have, otherwise the platforms would reject it.
Okay.
Probably on copyright grounds, I imagine.
Potentially.
And last follow-up question. You must, when you were going through read it again, go, can I change this? Like, Did you?
No. There were times where I did go, wow, I wish I'd made this sentence shorter. Because I've said it 3 times now and it's still not coming out.
Did I imagine this or did you find a mistake?
I did find a mistake. So I did. There was one mistake and I did correct that mistake. But apart from that, the audiobook is the representation of the physical book.
With this book, do you go in to read it with a newsreader type attitude? Is that...
I did to a certain extent, and certainly that really helped me get it done with hopefully not so many fluffs. But I also took Richard's advice about how to approach it and really tried to bring that storytelling, emotion, taking the listener on a journey, so it wasn't just presenting facts and figures, there was an emotional connection to the book. So it is like a performance.
So you allowed the emotion to come out when you felt it?
Oh yeah. It would be odd not to.
It was very clear, like I listened to it, it's very clear like a reporter, but it's heartfelt. Like you can feel, it's a visceral feeling as a listener.
So the emotion does come through.
Oh yeah, I had a few little teary moments. It's really beautifully read.
Thank you, Tamina.
That was probably a big part of your journey from being a journalist to writing a book, was letting go of some of the constraints of journalism.
For sure, yeah. It was. I was fortunate enough to meet a retired publisher early on in the process of writing the book, and he lives here now. So I took him out for lunch a couple of times, and I said, "Could you give me your honest opinion?" And I got the first few chapters back with red pen all the way through them, and he's like, "You're writing like a journalist, and you can't." He said you need to let it breathe, and you need to take a bit of license with your creativity, and not everything needs to be in quotes. You need to make all that narrative, And so it is a different way of writing. So I had to learn a lot of the process, and that was the point of getting a RADF grant, because that's what it does. It helps develop artists in our community. So it took me from being a journalist to being a writer, because it is a different way of writing and storytelling. So I did have to let go of some things, like the, and accuracy, 100% accuracy. You can kind of let things have a bit of flavour and paint a bit more a picture with the words than you would if you were doing a journalistic type report.
The journalist is always required to say who, what, when, where, how, why.
And attribute.
And attribute everything. The author is being asked, what was it like to be there? What did it feel like?
What did it smell like?
Yeah, how did it smell?
Yeah, and Richard as well, in the beginning of the process, again, I had it out to Richard and also to Kira Shorey, and my other ABC colleague, and they were both really helpful with trying to detach me from being a journalist and bring some of their expertise in storytelling to sort of say, yeah, again, remind me, tell me what it feels like, take me there. And it's actually been one of the nicest compliments that I've had on the book from readers who've said, oh, I really got a sense of what it's like there.